the Oxford School Committee. The first item on our agenda for review this evening is the approval of minutes from the regular meeting held on August 25th, 2015. We have a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The records show that the minutes pass. 3 in the affirmative and 2 absent. Next item on our agenda was Representative. He's on his way? Okay. As is one of our committee members, so we'll move along, have the discussion when he arrives. The next item on our agenda is Educare half-day fee increase, and I'd like to turn the floor over to Dr. Garceau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This request comes to us from Denise O'Coin with the help of Nada Lepore. It's in regards to a fee adjustment for Educare. As the committee and the community know, Educare provides daycare coverage for our students before and after school. And with the adoption of this year's calendar, including the 5 half-day PD days, those early release days, we want to be able to provide daycare for those as well. But what's being sought is an increase in the fees for those half days. So where it's normally a $6 fee for after-school service, what's being proposed is that that be increased to $10 on those days where we have half days. There are 5 of them throughout the year. And so if I could just read this, it'll probably explain it better than I'm doing right now. It says, the Oxford Public Schools is pleased to provide to our K-6 students with an additional after-school supervised program. Our adult supervisors, assisted by students, provide academic and other age-appropriate activities at minimal cost. Educare has been pleased to be able to keep the rates as low as possible. But we are not a profit-making department, however, we must cover expenses. So what it goes on to say is that they're asking for to increase the rate for the in-service days only to be adjusted from $6 to $10. There are 5 of these such dates. They are 10/13, 12/8, 1/12, 4/12, and 5/10 of 16. This modest increase will help us in meeting our financial obligations. Children will access the Educare program upon dismissal and can be there until 5:30 p.m., which is normal, but again, it would start earlier, and this requires staff members to be available for an additional 2 to 3 hours a day. NADA has also provided a number of other supporting documents about the Educare program itself, and including the registration forms and that. But that is the request, is that on those particular days we increase the rate from $6 to $10, which I think is entirely reasonable.
Do any members of the committee have any questions regarding this matter? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the fee increase for the in-service half-days.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let the record show that it passes with 3 yes and 2 absent. Thank you. And now I will move on, go back to our agenda item with Representative McKenna. We're glad he was able to make it through the traffic. You should know that this time of day is not a great time of day to be coming up that way. Well, on behalf of the committee, Representative, we'd really like to thank you for coming this evening. I'm sure, as you know, that budget issues are not unique to Oxford, but we're happy to have you here with us this evening for some discussion.
Absolutely.
Not sure if you'd like to start by making some remarks, or if you'd like to hear from the committee.
No, at this point, I'm certainly here very interested in hearing your concerns, your thoughts, and your questions. I certainly can't promise to have any answers right now for you, but, we're here to be a resource in whatever way possible, whether that's bringing questions to the administration or any help that I can provide to further answer questions. I will say that, as everyone is very well aware, we're anxiously waiting the full report from the Chapter 70 Review Commission. There was a preliminary report that was out with some suggestions and recommendations, but I think the bulk of the work that they were commissioned to do remains undone. That report should be coming out, I believe, at the beginning of December, is my latest understanding. So I think a lot of what the state will be doing regarding education funding will depend on what recommendations and findings are in that commission. That being said, as you mentioned, this isn't a unique problem to Oxford. That certainly in no way makes it easy to sit here and the pain's real. The pain's very real. So I don't say that to diminish the pain. I say that to say there are many who feel the similar pain. The problem that I foresee coming with the Chapter 70 Commission is that our funding is based on a formula right now, and any time you change that formula, you're going to have some who come out better and some who come out worse off. So some of the recommendations from that commission will be administrative policy, but some of them will certainly require legislative action. And when those require legislative action, you're certainly going to have a political fight from those communities who may see their funding diminished to make better in other communities. So in that regards, I don't expect major substantive changes. I think it'll be more of a picking around the edges, but I think that there are some areas that certainly need addressing: special education funding, school choice formula and how that is allocated. So those will be some areas that I certainly will be looking out for and hoping that we have some significant changes. But with that said, I'm certainly welcome to hear your concerns and any questions that you may have.
Certainly. I'd like to open it up to the committee. Mrs. Ennis?
Thank you, Rep. McKenna, for coming in. We appreciate it. We need to start really communicating and working much more closely. One of our schools in Massachusetts has put out a 3-year moratorium on all testing, and that's the town of Greenfield. How do you feel about that, is my first question, and I will be asking my colleagues to support that so that we can get some breathing room. I think that DESE has piled on so much onto our superintendent, onto our principals, all the way down the line, our teachers, and it just keeps building and building and building. We hear about PARC, we hear about MCAS, we hear about the Common Core. All of these terms are going out with very little information and communication behind them. So one of the things I think that we really need to look at when we're going to discuss any kind of testing or change in curriculum is start to pilot these in. Instead of throwing them at us. No one's prepared. And when they're prepared, when DESE believes they're prepared, we're not. No district is. So that moratorium for 3 years is going to be a resolution through MASC. And I highly recommend, if you find it feasible, to back that for us, to help us. I think that Worcester is already on board. Was Worcester?
I don't recall. I know there were a total of 5 school committees that have passed a resolution.
Tracy said. Okay, well, there are 5 so far, so hopefully tonight we become 6. And let them know that we're going to support this kind of stay, you know. So any kind of communication, I think, when it comes to these kinds of matters is really important, as you know. Now, 5 or 6, 7 years ago, I think now, maybe 7 years ago, we did have the roundtable meetings for Chapter 70. Those have since ceased. I think we've got to pick them up again. That was great information. I think you were Rep. Durant's aide at the time. That was great information. We all got to sit down, kind of hash it out, superintendents. I mean, Superintendent Gilrain was so influential in expressing the need that this area has, not just the districts, but the whole area. So I think that's something we really have to kind of punch up again, get our families involved in that so that everyone understands how this formula works. Even though we had a class on it, it's very, very confusing, as you know. But I think that they need to hear that this is how this formula works now, and this is why it's not working for us now.
Yeah.
You know, that's really an important factor in all of this. So, by all means, please,
Yeah.
stay in communication, but I hope that, I don't know if we could forward to Rep. McKenna's office that moratorium resolution. Maybe we could forward it over to you, and you take a look at it.
Yeah,
you know?
several things in that regard. Should the board tonight choose to put a moratorium, you have my full support on that.
Okay.
You have my absolute and full support. I'm actually part of the group that's collecting signatures for the ballot initiative to repeal Common Core. I don't personally believe that Common Core and the park standards are what we need in Massachusetts. Maybe that differs from some people in the room, I'm not sure, but I think that whether you agree with standardized testing or not, under MCAS, I believe we had a very, very good system. We were among the nation's leaders, and if you took Massachusetts tests within a state alone, we tested among some of the world's leaders, never mind within our country. So I think that by adopting park standards and Common Core standards in the park test to meet those standards, we are naturally bringing ourselves down to a nationwide average. I don't support that. I think it's confusing for our teachers. It boxes them in a lot of situations. So I am personally opposed to park and Common Core. And should Oxford choose to self-impose a moratorium on that, you have my full support in any way that I can help.
Right.
Regarding the roundtable, I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Especially following the report from the Chapter 70 Commission, I think it would be very, very beneficial to gather some area schools together and those stakeholders and say, okay, here's what was handed out. How are we going to implement that? How are we going to move forward? And make sure that we're all interpreting those recommendations in the same way and just moving together, moving forward together. So I certainly, take
Be
that
great.
in
Yeah.
consideration. I think that's a great idea.
If I
Thank
may
you, Mrs.
finish
Ennis,
up.
yes.
The one thing that I'm just going to say about MCAS, anyone that knows me knows I do not believe in it. I do not find it an educational tool whatsoever. I do not believe we should have students that are learning how to learn by taking a test to fill in a circle. I have been opposed to MCAS since day one on this committee. So in saying that, I think that we have to, again, have more conversation and communication. I don't have much patience because I never have had patience. It's just the way I roll. But in saying that, I think that something has to be said at the legislative end, and that is, if we continue to use this test, this MCAS test, to educate our students, we are doing them a disservice. Because not every student learns the same.
Absolutely.
We have got to make sure that that whole child, no matter if it's a SPED student, if it's an honors student, if it's a student that is right in the middle of the road, if it's a slow learner, they're not going to test equally by any means. So it's not fair. That's where the fairness issue of it comes in. There is no continuity when it comes to giving this test. We tell everybody, make sure the kids go to bed early, give them a good breakfast. That should be a daily thing, not just for that week. But that week, we put so much pressure on our teachers, on the rest of the staff, on our students, to take a test that may be so difficult for some kids that we don't know which way to go
Yeah.
with it. Now, I'm going to speak because I can for my daughter. She is an honors student, and she comes up, and she has in the past, in need of improvement. Explain to me how an honors student on the honor roll comes up in need of improvement. Something's missing, something's broken. There is no meat. There are other students that really have trouble learning, and they come up failing That's not fair. Children aren't failing. It's the test that's failing. So I think that we're so focused on this testing, especially in this state. There are other ways to have accountability. And by giving a test where the kids have got to color in a circle and we have rallies to get them all hooped up and ready to go, and this is my opinion only, I know everyone else has their own opinion. As a mother of a student that works really hard and comes up in need of improvement, and that deflates her like, oh, I can't believe it. Yet she's an honor student.
Yeah, and I
You know?
certainly share those concerns. I will say, I understand the importance of having some measure of teacher success, teacher improvement, as well as the advancement of students, but the high-stakes nature and the all-or-nothing nature of these tests and the amount of money that is incentivized on the back end of them, I think gives schools the wrong motivation, and I just think has become twisted, and you get to the point where you're taking 2 weeks out of a school year for block testing, and it messes with teacher schedules, student schedules, and as you mentioned, not every student certainly is the same or is coming into that on the same playing field. So to have that high-stakes nature, I certainly don't support. I don't know that you're going, in Massachusetts right now, I certainly don't think we're in a position where removing all testing is going to be even a conversation starter. So I feel that we have to approach it understanding, where the playing field is and with realistic expectations. But I think your concerns are very, very well founded, and I certainly share those.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Spitz, anything?
I do have a few things, thank you. A lot was said already, so some of my concerns really are, again, to echo Mrs. Ennis to some degree, because she covered so much, are the testing for our children. And I don't think we should realistically talk about MCAS going away, because it's not going to. And I think we can talk about that and talk about it, and it's not going to happen. Where we can impact that is probably Park and Common Core, and that's probably where my direction tends to go. I think we have to have some kind of standardized testing to be able to hold teachers accountable, and as well as students, to make sure that they're getting what they need on a daily basis from the educational system. I'm very happy to hear that you're behind putting a moratorium on testing, which to me really says a lot for you in my book. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. The whole thing boils down to the Chapter 70 formula. I mean, it hasn't been right. I was on the school committee for 6 years prior, and it hasn't changed. There's been no amendments to that since I've been involved in the school department. And I really feel that until that actually happens, things are not going to improve. Things are not going to get better for the town of Oxford. And I think that's where our focus and direction really needs to be, to make sure that we do what we can do in our part to make sure that that funding question does change, and it does become something more that we could live with than it is now. Because Oxford's really a community that kind of falls in the middle of everything. Mm-hmm. And, we're not one of the poorest communities, but we're not one of the richest communities. So therefore, we actually suffer as a result of that. And I think that's where, for us, you should be directing a lot of your attention is on the Chapter 70 formula and making sure that that does get amended and does get changed. And I think the roundtable discussions, I think, are imperative that they happen. I really do. I think it's really good to get everybody together so we can all kind of air exactly what's on our minds with education and really hopefully make a positive impact on some of the things that we've already started discussing tonight. So that's kind of what I have.
And just a follow-up on the Chapter 70, as you mentioned, and just for clarification, if anyone doesn't know, that was designed to be reviewed every 2 years.
And it
It's
hasn't.
been reviewed twice in about 25 years, which is
Right.
just an absolute failure on the state's part, so,
Yeah.
just to point that out.
Hugely.
Mrs. Griffin?
Thank you for your time, first and foremost. It's wonderful that you're here. Basically echo a lot of sentiments that are in the room. The funding system's broken. I personally think testing should stick around in some aspects. I'm not for a moratorium per se. We do need data. Our teachers need some way to see the growth of their students, and this is a system that may be flawed and not perfect at times, but we know this system. So I'm not for Park per se, but I like that we have stuck with MCAS, and we're going to get our data released to us soon, and I'm excited and anticipating some good things, but you know, you just don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. When things get difficult, you really gotta, you know, be reflective. And I think that we're doing a good job here about being reflective, and we're realizing that we need more money, to say the least. Everybody in the room knows it. You know, we are suffering. Other communities are too. You know, I'm at a loss because, you know, it's nice to have you here. I just wish a pot of gold kind of came with you this evening.
So do I.
I'm sure everybody feels
So
the
do
same
I.
way in the room.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's basically my feelings. So, thank you for your time, though.
Absolutely. And one of my biggest concerns with Park and Common Core versus MCAS is the feedback cycle, or the lack thereof, that we currently have under Common Core and Park. One thing under MCAS, and as I said, I don't necessarily support the high-stakes nature, but certainly support the measure, the ruler that it provides for teachers and students. But the fact that teachers, students, and parents get a chance to see those tests and see the answers and understand the scale that they're graded on and what goes into them, I think is very important. Everything I've heard is that no teachers or parents really have any input or feedback on the questions or the testing or the material that goes into the Park, which is certainly a major concern when you get the test and you get a score back, but you don't know what the questions were or how you did well or not well. So that's one of the differences and concerns that I have, just to kind of put that out there as well.
May I?
Certainly.
I know with Park being so relatively new, I'm sure that those things are to come, just like MCAS with the system that we currently have. I mean, any parent can go on to the DESE website and pull up past tests going back 10, 15 years, well, probably 10 years. It feels like for longer than that. And you can go through all the test questions, and teachers can do that, and teachers can analyze, you know, what's the most common wrong answer for a particular student or a particular class. That's invaluable. Having that particular data as an educator myself has allowed me to tell parents when they come for a parent conference, this is what your child struggles on and why. And I think that's what's empowered our teachers and our parents to know what their needs of their child are. Now, I know with Park, you know, I haven't been in a district that actually is using it where I'm teaching, but I'm imagining those things are to come, and there's already questions out there. There's already resources out there. I think a lot of it is lack of education. A lot of it happens to be a lot of people having a lot of fear about Common Core and Park, and I think the best way to kind of nip that in the butt is to educate the community that it's not necessarily a big evil. Obviously, people have very good intentions when they go out and do these things. And so I do have a little concern when I hear from you as my representative and other people that they have a lot of anti-Common Core feelings. I think it comes from fear. And I honestly see some very positive things in the Common Core. I think it does, and it has elevated the teaching practices of many communities. And we are getting our kids, you know, better prepared for either a career or for college. We're teaching them how to read, you know, nonfiction texts and things that they're going to encounter in real life, where in the past, people don't necessarily put the emphasis on some of these more challenging reading materials. And that's one of the big pushes behind Park, is not to have our kids kind of go out into the real world without getting that prior experience in the classroom. And it's very difficult. And yes, it's more demanding than ever. Our kids have to, you know, unfortunately experience some difficult times in the classroom learning some of these things, but we're preparing our children now, more so than ever. And nobody wants to see their kid have a hard time with that, first and foremost. But I think the answer is not lowering the expectations in the bar for our students. It's scaffolding things so we can get them to that next level. And I think everybody in this community is more than capable. I think everybody in Massachusetts is more than capable. We've proven that, like you said. We've out-tested our peers here and in Finland and other Scandinavian countries. We've done amazing stuff. But please, relook at that Common Core and speak to more educators about it and people that are in the trenches before you sign up to get rid of it, because there's some really good stuff there too. So that's it. Thank you.
Do you have any comments back? Okay, my turn. Thank you again for coming out this evening, and I have a little list that I worked up here, so please be patient with me. One thing that I will say, when Mrs. Ennis and Mr. Spitz were talking about these Chapter 70 roundtables that happened, it was a little bit before my involvement with the school district, but I do recall that, I believe it was over last winter, there were several meetings of the Foundation Budget Review Committee. My problem with that is that they were all held at the most inconvenient times for people who actually work, and to have to take time out of take time off your job to go to Boston to testify. And I think they had one, it was like one in this area, and I think it was like on a Saturday morning, or was it like?
I attended one at Neshoba Valley on a Saturday afternoon, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, there were very few options for working people to attend those, and yes, you can submit written testimony, but it's so much more powerful and meaningful if you're able to sit face to face across the table from somebody and hear the input that other people have and kind of formulate what you want to say. So I hope that those continue. I don't recall who actually sponsored that. I don't know if it was the Review Commission.
The Review Commission's an act of the legislature, so that's a statewide initiative. The roundtables that Mrs. Ennis is referring to are more localized and are meetings of the school committee, superintendents, and stakeholders within maybe 5 or 6 local communities that share a lot in common, and gives you a little bit more of an open discussion format to talk to some colleagues about what's going well, what's going poorly, difficulties or successes, things like that. So I think they're certainly both valuable in different ways.
Yeah, and I would just love to echo that. I do hope that is brought back in some fashion. My next comment is within regards to Park, and one of the major issues that I have with Park is how is it that our commissioner is able to be our commissioner and make the recommendation that we go with Park, yet he serves on the board for Park? And I know that I don't believe it's the sitting Attorney General, I think it was the past Attorney General, said that that's not a conflict of interest. Is there some type of legislation that could be put in place to prevent such conflicts of interest in the future? Because to me, that's unacceptable.
Yeah, theoretically, we could write an act of the legislature that says the same person shall not serve in both capacities. To be honest, I wouldn't expect that sort of language to go forward, just understanding the way Beacon Hill works and kind of the power structure. And certainly have the prior Attorney General's opinion. I don't agree with her opinion, but her opinion matters more than mine in that situation. So I share your concern with that. It certainly appears to be a conflict of interest. I would support legislation that prevents that. Hopefully we'll have a similar Chapter 70 review in the near future to follow up with this one, and it won't be another 25 years before we do this again. So that certainly would be something that I would look for in that.
And I'd love to see some more legislative oversight with regards to DESE. It kind of seems to operate in its own bubble, and I'm really troubled by the fact that you have no active teachers, superintendents, school committee members that are allowed to serve on the DESE board. When you have a board of directors for a hospital, you'd expect a doctor, at least a doctor, to serve in that capacity. In the financial world, we'd expect some people with some financial expertise. The composition of that board is troubling to me, and I know that the Mass Teachers Association is working on some type of resolution to include teachers. I don't think that goes far enough. I think that you need to involve our professional educators who actually have the knowledge and the day-to-day ins and outs of what it takes to run a school district to help formulate that policy. I'm not an educator. I tell everybody that I meet, don't ask me. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a superintendent. I'm a parent that cares deeply about my children and all the children in my community, and that's why I do what I do. But to me, it's just absolute nonsense.
Is it your understanding that teachers or school administration is not allowed, or that they simply just aren't, by chance, they are not on
It is
board?
my understanding that they are not allowed.
Okay.
I believe when I did some research, I don't recall if it was a law or some type of mandate. If anybody, does anybody know off the top of their heads? No? Okay.
I know that that there has been a movement by the MTA to get a teacher representative, but I feel like there have been former educators and certainly people with educational experience.
Former.
There might be some people who have present experience. I don't really know. I'd have to look. I have pulled up the Board of Educators, profiles before and gone through, and I believe there's actually been some people with school committee experience.
Yeah, in honesty, I don't know the makeup of that board as it currently is constituted, but I'd certainly be interested, and we'll have my aide look into the language that MTA is proposing and see if that might be something that I can support, as well as what that regulation as to the composition of that board is. A lot of times with boards that are legislatively created, it'll be a designee of the Speaker of the House, a designee of the Senate President, a designee of the Commissioner, and it'll be made in that sort of fashion, so there may be similar language. Sometimes there's parameters more specific as to who exactly fills those roles, sometimes there's not. So I'll certainly look into the language behind that.
Did you have a comment, Mrs. Ennis, before
Just
I
real
continue?
quick, since it's resolution season, if this committee wanted to work up a resolution in regard to bringing school committee members, teachers, superintendents onto the DESE Board of Directors, we could do that and submit it to MASC. So we could spearhead a movement if we so choose.
Next thing I'm going to speak about, and I know it's echoing some of my colleagues' comments already, but with regards to the Common Core, I'm kind of middle of the road, so to speak. My problem with Common Core is that we had the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks, which were the model for the National Common Core, and from the research that I have done, the Common Core is basically a watered-down version of our curriculum frameworks. And when I read data from several different sources indicating that Massachusetts ranks #1 in the nation, I'm really, really troubled by the fact that we're going to throw that out and adopt something that has been modified to meet the needs of other parts of this country. We should never, ever, ever give up what we have. I mean, to throw it out and say we're going to go with something completely different, I have a problem with. Now, that being said, because it's modeled largely in part by our curriculum frameworks, there is a lot of overlap. So, and that's why I'm not necessarily anti-Common Core, but I'm anti- let's do what the federal, let's do what the whole country is doing, because we have a great system. Let's not throw that out. Let's improve what we have and continue to make it better. But to throw it out for what, some are calling a dumbed-down version of the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks seems like nonsense to me, not to mention a waste of the resources that went into developing the frameworks, the MCAS. I don't know. I don't know if you have and I got the sense from what your comments that that's kind of, you have a similar mindset.
I think you hit the nail on the head, and, maybe I've grown cynical in government, but I see it as a money grab where the state saw money in the race to the top and decided to pursue this new curriculum in order to try and capitalize on some of that money. For those states who are among the bottom performing, I think it's certainly a great opportunity to elevate their systems to try and strive to be as good as some of the top performers, such as Massachusetts. I just think, like you said, when you've got 50 states and we're at the top, in order to get to a national average, the law of physics says that's bringing you down to the middle. While that's great for those bottom half that come up, I'm just not comfortable with Massachusetts, in my mind, turning back the clock from where we started 5 or 10 years ago to get to the point where those other states are now. I think we've been there, we've paved that way, which is tremendous. I don't see the need to then take a step back so everyone can catch up.
Right.
Which is where I really feel like that's what's happening right now.
That's wonderful to hear, and I just want to, and I'll send this to Lori, but the Mass Teachers Association, and this is where I get the information, says that many people are shocked to learn that current law forbids public school educators from serving as members of the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, the board that governs our profession, and that's a quote from the MTA president. So, that's where I got that information. I knew I wasn't going crazy, so.
Yeah, if you could forward that.
I'll forward that link to Lori. I have a couple more things, but you look like you wanted to make a
Well,
comment.
I was just going to say, we're still following the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks in the state, and I think, that's what most teachers are doing in their classrooms with the supplement of some of the best practices of Common Core. And I think that should be something that folks know. I mean, we haven't thrown away the Mass curriculum frameworks. Everybody's still using them here in Massachusetts, so it was a good point.
I think what I saw is that it's something that they're looking to do in the future when if we adopt Park, right, then we're going to be using really the Common Core, which I believe that the state does have some control over. But to your point, I do agree with that statement that we haven't yet thrown out what we have. I just hope that we don't throw out what we have. So let's talk money a minute. So with all due respect, every time we talk about the funding formula, I hear the same thing from all of our elected leaders, that there's going to be some winners and there's going to be some losers. And with all due respect, that's life. But what's happening is you have middle-class communities that can't afford to properly educate our children. And it is an absolute disservice, and I question ethically on a statewide level the impact of having such inequity among communities. So if you have a community within Massachusetts that chooses to pass an override or chooses to fund education at double the required spending, those students would likely be getting a higher caliber level education with some tools that they have at their disposal that other communities don't. And really, we need to level the playing field in Massachusetts so that whether you attend school in Newton or Wellesley or Worcester or Oxford or Greenfield or Springfield, that you truly get the same level of education, because it's really putting an horrible impetus on these communities to make very difficult decisions regarding where we're going to spend our dollars, which are very limited. And I look at some of our neighboring communities, even within a half-hour driving distance, that have passed overrides and are building beautiful new buildings. And I look at what we've been through just in the past 6 months. So I'm going to get on my soapbox a minute and share with you, if you're not aware, that our fiscal year budget that we're currently in was the level in which we were funded by town meeting was came out to be, I think, around 500,000 or so less than what we're currently what we had last year, and that was because the town needed to pull back some of the unrestricted general government aid in order for them to meet some expenses that they have to meet, their pension funds are unfunded, there's repairs that need to be done. So that was about $300,000 off the top. Then, in an effort to try and put a Band-Aid on a bleeding wound, they also gave us, I think it was $165,000 in free cash last fiscal year. That didn't come back to us. And then I believe there was also some monies for some ADA improvements at our middle school. So even if we got the same number that we got last year, there's still, everybody knows it doesn't cost the same to your expenses go up year over year. So we were already starting in the hole, and we had to make horrible, difficult decisions in which teachers were laid off, our class sizes were rising, and we knew it was going to be tough, and we said, well, you know what, we can get through this. We so can do this. That's become our mantra of our superintendent. We so can do this. We will do this. And then we had some changes in central office, and we're finding out that there were some costs that were significantly higher than originally thought by an outgoing staff member. And that's to the tune of $800,000 that many people have heard of. So then we had to, I mean, we're already thin, and then we had to continue to gut. And we have elementary class sizes nearing 30. Those youngsters are just starting their education, and that is the foundation. They are learning to read, and that's the foundation of the rest of their education. We had to make difficult decisions about eliminating some specialists. A great loss was the loss of STEM at the STEM specialists at our elementary school. I'm told that hopefully that material is going to be delivered by the classroom teachers, but I've heard from several parents and my own daughter about what happened to STEM, Daddy, and what do I say to her? She loved STEM. I'm sorry, honey, there wasn't enough money to pay your STEM teacher. We shouldn't have to be put in these horrible situations that we're going from classroom sizes in the teens to classroom sizes of near 30, and we need some relief. Not to sound crass, but I don't care where the money comes from. I don't care if you have a pot of gold that comes. We just need some relief. And if that's changing the funding formula, that's wonderful. If we look at the impact that charter schools and vocational schools have with the state formula in taking resources away from one school and giving it to another, I mean, the whole funding mechanism for education in the Commonwealth is crazy. And I personally would take a match to Chapter 70 and start from scratch, but we need money. Any ideas, Representative?
Regrettably, I left my pot of gold in Boston, so I'll have to bring that to the next meeting.
Please do.
Our next meeting is September 28th.
Duly noted. No, and this is the point where I said, I don't necessarily have all the answers, and I hear those concerns loud and clear, and I hear them from many different communities. It's my belief that I'm a small government guy. I think that government gets in the way, so if you can't do it locally, or I think you should be able to do more locally than at the state level, but the state feels the need to take that over. I would love to see far, far more supports dumped into local aid and into school funding, whether it's Chapter 70 or a revised Chapter 70 or what have you, rather than the new programs and new initiatives and new statewide ventures that the state far too often puts significant amounts of money in. That frustrates me a lot. So I certainly would like to see a structural reconfiguration of how much money the state commits to those local services. That being said, I don't know where the budget will go next year, and I certainly can do my part and advocate I supported an amendment to the budget that would have further increased Chapter 70 over what it was in this last budget. That amendment unfortunately did not pass, so that funding was at the level that you did receive. So I certainly have supported those additional funding. But as far as solving it and having a solution, that I just don't have at this point.
Has any, and I know the answer to this already, but let me back up and say, take that back. What I would really like to see is, we know that our state has its rainy day fund. I don't recall the balance of it off the top of my head, but I could tell you that with probably, I don't know, less than 0.5% of that could make a huge impact to a community like Oxford. And when we're hearing about our other school districts in our neighboring communities, almost all of them are in pretty tough spots right now. I would really like to see our legislature consider some type of extraordinary relief. And I'm not talking about next year, I'm talking about now. We need some help. We are in a position where we have an incredibly strong educational leader that is the CEO of our district, and right as he got some traction underneath him, the wind was knocked out of him because of these budget issues. And we're expecting a lot out of him, but you can't get blood from a stone either, and we need some help financially. So I know that it's probably not going to be something popular among your peers at Beacon Hill, but I think that there really should be some type of special legislation to have some extraordinary relief for districts such as ours that are, having such financial difficulties. And that's all I have for you this evening. You have anything to say about that?
Certainly, we'll consider that, and we'll talk among my colleagues and see where we might be able to look at moving forward, or give it consideration.
There's a lot of people behind you and a lot more watching at home that have been asking me, what are we going to do to hire more teachers? And I don't have an answer for them. So, I don't want to inundate your email or your Facebook, but, maybe these people need to reach out to you, Representative, and to also our other elected officials, and let them hear from, let you hear from them the struggles that we're going through.
I would actually more than welcome that. So, my email, if you would like to inundate it, is joseph.mckenna@mahouse.gov. So it's you can find me on the state website. So please send me those emails, because that gives me that foundation to know what's important and what those concerns are.
Thank you very much for your time. Does anyone else have anything? I'm sorry. I think I outdid you, Mrs. Ennis. I'm sorry.
Fine.
But thank you,
Absolutely.
truly thank you for coming out and hearing from us this evening.
my
And thank you,
pleasure.
Lori.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is in regards to our superintendent's evaluation, and I'd like to turn the floor over to our superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the committee will remember that in the spring, we started the evaluation process, and we had discussions about next steps, but we became so involved in the budget process that the chair at the time, Mr. Coonan, had asked that we put it aside for a time being and work through our budget issues, which we did through the spring and then obviously again during the summer. So we are a little behind schedule, but I'd like to be able to revive this process, and I provided a number of documents tonight that I'd like to be able to talk you through. The first is, you'll see at the top, it says Step 3 of the cycle. And what that refers to is where we kind of left off. As superintendent, I came in last July of 14, through the summer and fall, completed a self-assessment, worked with the committee to develop plans and goals for my evaluation, and those goals were presented and voted upon, I believe, in February. January
12th.
January 12th, thank you, Darlene. So we did that process, and we worked through the year. That brings us really to step 3, where it's time to start considering evidence that had been collected. And this first page talks about any kind of evidence that might be considered. Mid-cycle or end-of-cycle reports, school committee agendas, materials and minutes, observations of the superintendent in action at school committee meetings, in forums with faculty and community events, budget presentations. It bullets out a number of things that might be considered as pieces of evidence. I would include in there our Friday FYIs and basically everything that's been going on in the district. From there, we would go to step 4, the mid-cycle goal review meeting. And if I were on a multi-year plan, that would probably make sense to complete for last year. But I believe as somebody with a 3-year contract and just completing the first year of that contract, that it makes more sense to have an annual end-of-cycle review. And I would recommend that we moved right to step 5, which would be that end-of-cycle summative evaluation and report. And in that report, what we would do is the committee would consider the progress that the superintendent has made on those goals that we agreed to back in January, and consider the evidence, those bullets that I just talked about and other evidence sources as compared to the professional practice standards for the evaluation, which are in the binders you received back in the spring. We should still have those, and if there's any materials missing, we can certainly get those to you. And then the impact on student learning with data supporting assessment. Those MCAS scores, while we do have preliminary MCAS data in the district, is embargoed until the end of the month, so this works into our plans anyway. That information will be data that we can discuss publicly, so that would be fine. So then, on the next page of that first packet, what it talks about is, it looks like I have a page missing, the steps that would be taken.
15, 14.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I don't have one. It starts on the previous page. You would consider the progress on those, and how that happens is that each committee member prepares the end-of-cycle evaluation report. So again, each member would consider the goals, which you should have, but we can send those to, no, actually, they're in these packets. We'll provide you again the progress that the superintendent has made towards those goals. Consider multiple evidence sources as compared to the rubric language, which you will have. And then each member completes an evaluation on the superintendent's high performance. And then from there, the chair compiles all that and writes one final report and recommendation. And then the evaluation conversation and the vetting of all of that has to happen in open session. And that would happen in a school committee meeting where the chair would present the report, there would be discussion, I'd be happy to answer any questions, hear any feedback, any suggestions for going forward, and a final summative evaluation for the first year in the district is completed. So that first packet talks about how this would play out. The next packet that you have there is an additional copy of my entry report that was provided to the committee in April, but again, that was when we were embroiled in budget talks, and Mr. Coonan asked that we kind of table that. So you're provided with another copy of that. It's a lot of evidence, I think, about what we've worked on since July 1 of 14, framed in the 6 buckets of work from that elementary, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed District Review Report of 2009, which I had presented, and we worked on a lot of those areas of recommendations around leadership and governance, curriculum and instruction, assessment, human resources and professional development, student support, and financial asset management. I think you'll recognize that a lot of what I did through last year was trying to address the recommendations that had been made. I mean, I think we made huge progress there, but a lot of that is included in this second copy. What I've also included for you is, as a member of the new superintendent's induction program, there was a leadership skills assessment completed by about 7 or 8 of 10, so it's not a very large N. It's not a very large number that we're working with, but members of the administrative team last year, they completed an online survey regarding my performance as a leader in the district and those kinds of things. You might find some of that information interesting. There are ratings in there, and then there are commentaries from people who took the survey themselves. So it's basically what are the directors and principals saying about the superintendent as a leader. It's another evidence source. And then the last piece, well, it's not actually the last piece. The next piece is my own set of bullets that I think you would want to consider. And it's really not, this isn't blowing my own horn, this is just, to consider to the extent which I have done these kinds of things, and things like establishing a culture of high expectations and providing professional development to all teachers and administrators on instructional priorities and strategies for improving outcomes for students, all students. Committing to and providing support for a district vision, identifying a clear and compelling set of priorities and strategies for achieving them. Developing a comprehensive entry plan drawing on multiple data sources, including the budget, staffing, instructional resources, parent listening sessions, community surveys, educator super sessions, attending Board of Selectmen and FinCom meetings, student achievement data, school and district improvement plans, etc. Overseeing the development of the fiscal 16 school budget, as well as the emergency contingency planning that went on throughout this summer. Regularly updating the school committee via Friday FYIs, email, telephone, and face-to-face accessibility and quick response times. Enhancing the district's social media presence for district using Facebook, Twitter, etc. to share announcements and information and celebrate student and staff achievements. Ensuring high-quality implementation of the Mass Educators evaluation model for teachers and administrators, providing training to all staff on expectations for performance and the EdEval model, providing mentoring to principals and directors, joining classroom visits and coaching on the delivery of high-leverage transformative feedback to educators, coordinating with town police and fire departments to bring ALICE training to all staff in the spring of 2015, attracting and hiring high-quality administrators and staff in technology, building leadership, including new principals, assistant principals, directors, and in special education, etc. Identifying and exploiting opportunities to consolidate and combine school and town resources and seek efficiencies. Establishing and maintaining positive and professional relationships with district bargaining units and their leadership. Guiding the development of high-quality and smart district and school improvement plans, providing ongoing support and training to administrators around using student achievement and growth data to inform decision-making, and empowering principals to take great ownership in and accountability for their buildings and supporting the building of teacher capacity for sharing in school and district leadership. So it's just really my own kind of bullet list of things you'd want to consider. Also included in here are the goals, again, copies of the goals that were submitted and approved in January 12th, I should say. So you have those available to you. And then, I believe this is lastly. Yes, lastly in here is Appendix E of the educator evaluation model as it applies to superintendents, and it talks about the next steps. So with step one, again, the individual members would complete evaluations. Step two would be, they would, evaluations of the superintendent's progress towards goals, I should say, first. If you look at those three goals and then think about the work we've accomplished in the last year, individual members would rate progress on the goals anywhere from did not meet to some progress to met to exceeded. And then individual members would also then consider all the evidence that's available and everything you know about the work that's going on, and again, compare that to the rubric language for each standard. And for each standard, individual members would assign a rating of anything from unsatisfactory through exemplary. And then the individual members would rate the superintendent's performance overall after considering the progress towards goals and the ratings on the standards and the rating overall, and develop an overall performance rating. And then from there, that would go to the chair, who would compile those and develop a summative report that we would talk about and share out together, and that would result in the ultimate creation of the superintendent's evaluation. So I've tried to give you the information again that's most pertinent and try and lay out the steps that have to take place so that we can get this going again. And if I had a recommendation about timelines, I did, and I scribbled it someplace. We next meet in 2 weeks. And what I would propose, if it meets the approval of the committee, is that in 2 weeks, we talk about the process, make sure that everybody's clear on it. Mr. Coonan will hopefully be with us. And then at the next meeting following that, gives us a little more time to complete all this work, we have the public discussion of the superintendent's evaluation. Now, with Columbus Day being October 12th, we don't have a regular scheduled meeting after the 28th until the 26th of October. So we could do it October 26th unless the committee wanted to schedule a special meeting prior to that.
Any comments from the committee?
Pleasure.
Pardon?
It's your pleasure, so.
Just wondering if anyone has any comments. I am interested in including our district accountability information, but it seems as though it's unclear at this point when that will be made available to us publicly, because the DOE website said late fall. Last time I checked, they're really specific about that. So, let's see, we have our next meeting. So I think that we should probably, to your point, bring this up at our next meeting, and hopefully at that point we'll have some clarity as to when we'll have that data available to us. Before we move on, do any members of the committee have any questions about the materials that Dr. Garceau provided, or any comments? Mrs. Griffin?
Just thank you again for putting together everything that you've given us before in a nice, neat, concise packet. The overview.
Mr. Spitz?
I just think that it's probably going to end up being that October date, because I really want some solid information before I react to
Right.
the review. So I think it really hinges on that completely, to me, anyways.
And, sorry, Dr. Garceau.
I just, through the chair, just wanted to also say, if any members have any questions or, wanted to sit with the rubric and come in and just say, Mark, I'm not quite clear on what this is, or what evidence might you be able to provide me that speaks to this, I'd be happy to do that. And with over a month to do it, I think everybody would feel very comfortable in knowing exactly where they want to land. So I'd be happy to meet with anybody at any time.
Thank you.
I forgot what I was going to say when that happens. But I am, I recall now, your contract with us only indicated an initial evaluation date, and at that point, it had a date of April, which I'm still not 100% sure why that date was chosen, but I think it had to do with the fact that committee wanted to review, to appraise you prior to the change in committee for our annual town election in May. But I think that it makes a lot of sense to include our district accountability data. I mean, we're we're evaluating our teachers on the data that's partially on the data that's included in that. So I think that it's only fair that we wait to include that in your overall evaluation. So I think it's good. We will target starting the process at our next meeting. We have a lot of materials to read, a lot of long nights with rubrics and entry materials, and hopefully they don't have coffee stains on them when we meet again in 2 weeks. But I think that we want to include that data. So thank you again for that. I don't think there's any action to take at this time. So the next item on the agenda is the discussion of legal services. So I did a little bit of research, and I'm not sure what this committee did in the past, but I don't recall that we annually appointed our legal counsel, and it was recommended that we do that going forward. I spoke with some resources at the Mass Association of School Committees. So, let's see. Our general legal counsel that we use is Attorney Cosgrove, and there was an email included in the packet that Darlene had sent out to Attorney Cosgrove, just wondering if we had any type of written agreement with him. And he says, you know, he's been representing us. He began sometime in the early 80s. And his retired partner had been doing it since 1975. So he has no such agreement, but if the committee wishes to have some type of contract or agreement, he would of course be okay with that and happy to look it over. I'm not sure that it's entirely necessary, but you know, I think as long as we have the data, and I can tell you I've been very happy with the services that he's rendered so far. The other matter is that we've retained the firm Stoneman, Chandler, and Miller LLP as legal counsel for special education matters and any other matters it chooses to refer for legal assistance. So, you know, again, my research has indicated that this appointment really does need to come from the school committee. So I don't know if before we look at doing any type of motion, I'd like to know if any of the committee members have any comments or questions regarding our legal services. Mrs. Ennis?
I think that before we make any decision on legal services, especially if we are going to put them out for so-called bid, they should come before us. I would absolutely invite Attorney Cosgrove here so everyone could meet him, kind of get a feel for his manners and everything. He just has a lot of experience in this field. I don't know how it came to be that we received this engagement letter from Stoneman, Chandler, and Miller. I don't even know where they are, or it doesn't say anything really here about them. So I think that, let's see, it would be Colby Blunt. I think that this, I would say, gentleman should come in, and we should be able to ask questions of what kind of services are they going to provide, and along with the superintendent, explain to us exactly what would their dealings be with our special ed department. I mean, this is all there is, and it doesn't give anything else for information except that their hourly rate is $200 an hour, and that their billing begins in 15-minute increments, and that, you know, was that negotiated? How did that come to be? And of course, then everything else that they bill for. So that's my only thought on this. I would have these gentlemen come in and talk to us.
Mr. Spitz?
I would support Mrs. Ennis on that, because this is really the first thing in the packet that I had seen on this other law firm. And Jim Cosgrove, I mean, he's been around since I've been on the school committee, and he's always done a great job for us. But again, everybody should meet him, and we should all agree. And I knew Bill Talcott very well, his partner that retired. So I just still think everybody should come in before the committee. Everybody should get to meet both legal services and make a decision based on that.
For the record, I believe that Colby is female. I believe it's a female attorney, so.
It's female?
I believe so.
My apologies.
No.
Colby.
You know, and at one of the prior meetings, I had talked about the possibility of inviting them in, and in fairness, since he's not here, Mr. Coonan was concerned about the cost to do so. But my personal opinion is that, you know, I don't think that we would have either of them here more than an hour. And I think it would be, you know, let's say it's an hour each. I think $400 well spent to do a, yes.
If I could just, I hope they don't expect us to pay them to come here to talk to us. I mean, I would never, no way. I mean, I'll tell you, Attorney Cosgrove, if he sends you a bill, I'd be shocked. You know, they better not think they're getting an hourly rate. No way. They're coming here to pitch us, is what they're coming here
Right,
for.
it's a bid
I'm not going to
process.
pay them to give the community a pitch of their services. That doesn't even make sense. You know, I mean, so I would make sure that the invitation to these two law firms states, you know, you are invited guests. Don't send us a bill because we're not going to pay it. Because that doesn't even make sense to me.
I'll pass that along. It was Mr. Coonan that had
I know,
indicated.
yeah, and
So, I have yet to look into it because his request at our last meeting, we just wanted to take a look and review our whatever documentation we had on file with these firms, or lack thereof, but just to have a better understanding. So I will work with Superintendent Garceau, and we will reach out to these firms and request that we have that we invite them to a meeting. I mean, we have looking at the engagement letter that we have with Stoneman, Chandler, and Miller, I don't see a term of this. So, yes, Mrs. Ennis?
if I may, is this even valid since we didn't vote it?
I think
Should we
that's
get a lawyer and ask?
I think that's
Haven't voted
something
on either.
that we'd have to look into. My gut is telling me that really neither one of them are valid because we haven't appointed them. So, notwithstanding, there's nothing in writing with Attorney Cosgrove, and what we do have in writing with this other firm, it doesn't appear to have any dates involved, so I don't see that there's any issue with us inviting them into the meeting to discuss the appointment or reappointment of their legal services. So we will arrange for that at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Griffin?
Can I continue with this?
Certainly.
For a moment? Is this something, in regards to legal services and whatnot, is this something we put a cap on? Like if we're engaging with special ed, needing some type of advisement from time to time, do we cap the monetary value for having legal counsel or not? Because my only concern is if we do have them, on a retainer or whatever, I would want some type of cap just to kind of set the tone that use them wisely and sparingly, because this is all we have. Otherwise, it could be very easy to pick up the phone to ask for some advice when really maybe there's other ways to seek information, and that's my only real concern in regards to.
So I don't know off the top of my head with regards to the special ed legal fees, but the regular attorney that we use, Attorney Cosgrove, believe there is a line item in our budget for that. So that truly, that is the cap. That's the budget that we've approved. I'm not sure, does a line item exist for special ed legal services, or does that fall within something else? Dr. Garceau, or I'm looking?
Actually, Ms. Folio would be able to answer that better, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to minimize the legal expenses that we've paid. Part of how we ended up in the situation that we did this past summer is due to exorbitant legal fees. So we're in a position where sometimes you have to spend $1 to get 10 back, and we're trying to rein that in. But the committee also always signs the warrants that authorize these payments, so there's always that checks and balances in there as well.
I think for our next meeting, if we could get some type of report or information regarding what our budgeted expenses are and where we are year-to-date for any legal expenses. I think
Sure.
that would be helpful and beneficial to the committee as we move forward. Any other comments or discussion on the legal services? The next item on our agenda is with regard to bonding administrators. I'd like to invite Mrs. Folio up to discuss this. This again was part of our last meeting, just doing some research in regards to insurance policies regarding bonding of administrative staff. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
Welcome.
At one of your prior meetings, you requested whether or not any of your staff was bonded. You have specifically 4 principals bonded at $1,000 each. Your director of funds, which I believe is the equivalent of your Kathy Martinello, at $25,000, and the treasurer, which is at the high school, at $25,000, and then any other public official that's not specifically itemized is at $25,000. The cost for those bonds is $189 a year.
What do you mean that the treasurer is at the high school?
There's a treasurer that handles the funds. You get quite a bit of cash activity at the
Student
high school.
accounts, okay, the student activity accounts?
Mhm.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Dr. Garceau?
I just have one, Donna. I was surprised to hear you say 4 principals, where we have 4 and a director, or 5 principals, depending how we look at it. Are we not including coffee in this?
I believe the reason that they even have a bond is for a student activity account. Typically, it's for anyone that touches cash. So in that case, that's why they carve out principals, because the principals are in charge of those student activity accounts. You don't have a student activity account for coffee.
Okay, but I would just ask that we consider whether or not it would be prudent to bond that position, because we are dealing with tuitions coming in, we're dealing with transportation costs going out. I think it's something we might want to take a look at.
Okay.
I have a question, and forgive me, I'm not really familiar with looking at this materials, but the penalty amount, is that the maximum coverage of that position? Is that what that's referring to? It has a penalty amount of $25,000, do you know?
My understanding of how bonds work, that's how much they're covered for an event. In this, typically you're looking at accidental type issues, not intentional. And it doesn't protect the employee. The employee can still be, the bond taken from the employee, and it affects the employee's ability to get bonded in the future. If you do something that's deliberate, you can still have consequences as that employee. But if you do something accidental, misplaced cash, things that happen. You get broken into at the school store or...
Okay. And then I do question the director of funds as well, because I thought when I read that, I thought that would be you, or, business manager.
The last person I knew that had that title was Mary LaRose. She was called the Director of Funds. And that person is primarily what Kathy was doing with payroll.
I'm just wondering, do we need to reach out to the insurance agency and clarify positions, just to make sure that everything is on the up and up? Oftentimes, unfortunately, insurance companies are looking for a reason not to pay, and I'd hate for something as minuscule as a title to impact if, God forbid, we ever need to make a claim against the bond. And then I'd also be interested in costs for additional amounts of coverage. This seems rather low, and it's not significant cost. So just to obtain some quotes for perhaps some additional coverages for the committee to review at a later time. Mrs. Ennis?
Through you to Mrs. Folio. So this is only for if you put your hands on cash.
Typically, that's what, when you bond people, because that's the one that you have a hard time putting any checks and balances into play. Warrant processes, you're approving the warrants for checks to go out.
Okay.
So,
But we have people who make decisions, such as special ed director, that if a student needs to be outplaced, who finalizes that decision? Or how, I'm sure it must be something we have to look through in the policy, but shouldn't those people that are making financial decisions for the district have some kind of, I don't even know if it would be called bonding or?
If I may, though, that, I believe that's covered under the all other public official. Our special ed director
See
is
that,
a,
but,
is a
yeah.
public official, but I don't know that
Public
Mrs.
official isn't any, is, I guess that's what I need to know, the definition of that. Public official is everyone, or is it public official elected? What, I don't.
I don't know that, do you have that information?
I don't specifically have that.
Okay. We'll give Mrs. Foley an opportunity to look into that. Mr. Spitz?
My understanding, and this is how it's always been, is that these are for people that actually physically handle cash, not budgets. Like she has, it's all on paper for these guys. So it's not really a cash, you're not touching cash. She's touching a ton of cash, but it's a paper thing. So it's not the same, this is for people that physically touch cash, like the student council here at the high school, okay? All that money gets funneled to the principal. He's got cash in his, well, I shouldn't probably, that's probably not a good thing to say, but it's anyone that has ability to handle physical cash versus, like Nader and Mrs. Folio, they all, it's all on paper. They're not physically handling cash for us. So it's not really a decision-making process that's being bonded. It's the physical handling of cash that's being bonded. So that's why I think the difference is that we're not kind of getting here.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly what you say, what you just said, Mr. Spitz, makes perfect sense, but from this materials here, it's not clear to me. So perhaps if we could just do some additional investigation. I don't know if the actual policy might provide us with this information, but if we could see if we could get our hands on the policy and then perhaps distribute it to the committee, that may answer the questions that we have.
Well, that's different.
Through the chair, you may also want to look at liability. That may be more what you're looking at is what's the liability insurance coverage for people who are making decisions that financially impact the town,
Okay.
as opposed to an actual bond.
Do you know if we have such liability?
I believe the town carries a liability insurance policy. It's probably, I want to say probably 1.5 million per event.
Okay. I think that information would be helpful to share with the committee as well. If you're able to get your hands on it, if you could have it, send it Dr. Garceau's way so he could distribute it to the committee, I think that would be helpful. Any other questions for Donna? Yes?
Just real quick, through you to Mrs. Folio, when you say the town has that liability, are we in that umbrella? Oh. You guys pay for it?
You pay for a share of it
we
and
also
your
do, too.
cost.
We get assessed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nothing's free in this world. Thank you,
You're
Donna.
welcome.
We appreciate the information.
Free love.
Okay, we have no correspondence, out-of-state field trips, information and proposals. We have from subcommittees, I don't believe there's any update yet. Mrs. Ennis and Mr. Spitz have an upcoming meeting for the policy.
We do on Friday.
Great. Mr. Coonan is not here. From our superintendent of schools, Dr. Garcelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, obviously, we are open for business. We welcome the students back on the 31st. We got through the heat spell, and now we've got some cooler temperatures in a 5-day week, which we're hoping to take advantage of. We had an outstanding start to the football season on Friday night. The score didn't look the way we would have liked, but we had a terrific turnout and a beautiful evening, and those young men represented themselves well, so we're very excited about that. The biggest issue I think that we've dealt with in the last couple of weeks, and it's an annual event, are transportation concerns. Regardless of what district you're in or wherever you are or the start dates, there are always concerns about bus stops and routes and those kinds of things. And I will say that with the policy changes that were made in the spring by the committee and some of the reconfiguring that had to happen, there were changes to stops and routes, and I thought we did a good job of getting the word out by posting it on the district website and in the papers and on the Facebook page and that, but in hindsight, it would have been a good idea to make use of the all-call system prior to schools opening. As I'll often say, though, the issue with that is when I use the system, people complain that they're getting phone calls. When I don't use the system, people complain that they're not getting phone calls. So we will continue to try and do that better, and we will certainly use it in the future. But the transportation issues have very much quieted down, and we look forward to a terrific school year. And that's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Are we getting an update for business tonight, or? It's on the agenda. I don't know if you have anything to. I'm going to take that as a yes.
I don't have anything formal to hand out to you, but I did want to kind of update you. In the last month or so, I've been reviewing a change that's occurring in the Fair Labor Standards Act that will impact the exempt employees. There are 5 exempt employees that right now qualify as exempt in all of the tests that are not covered by a collective bargaining agreement. And the big change that has been instituted from President Obama is the salary test threshold is changing, so that in order to be exempt, before it was $455 a week, or $23,660 annually. That number now is going to change to $970 a week, or $50,440. So for those 5 employees that I had brought to the superintendent's attention, they are very close to that threshold of the $50,000. They would have been forced to become a non-exempt employee, which entitles them to time and a half. And for those 5 employees, I know from the 6 months that I've been there, they work well in excess of the 40 hours. So I did recommend to the superintendent that he raise their salary enough to cover this threshold so that we didn't have to pay the time and a half. When I calculated the one that had the most distance, at 3 hours a week, you would have been paying more in overtime for just 3 hours a week. And I know that they work more than that now. Just something that came up. We're also looking at, still always looking for ways of saving money and making changes to some of the things that we've identified. And I've been really working very closely with the new Student Services Director. We've identified some areas of concern, and I briefly mentioned it in passing to the superintendent, and I believe the chairman knows. The way that you're using the TAs right now started off okay when you originally put it into play, but they're not covered by the teacher's contract. They're covered under the TAIA contract. So when you have a layoff, it doesn't look, when you do a recall, it doesn't look at anyone's certification. It's just based on seniority. So what we saw happen is when we had to do layoffs and we started recalling, we ended up in situations where we have people who originally got hired into their area of certification who are now maybe elementary school certified, and they're being placed up into the high school because we have no one left, and that was the area that we needed them. If they had been in the same layoff procedure as the teacher's contract, you would recall based upon levels of certification that you needed, and we would have been able to bring back people who were certified in the high school area back to the high school. It's a little problematic. We also found that in some instances, they were being used as special education TAs, and in some cases, being used as substitutes or being used in other types of duty as opposed to actually co-teaching, which is the original model that got put forward. So we've been looking at that closer, seeing whether or not it makes more sense to bring back a teacher as opposed to 2 TAs. That was the original thought. 2 TAs and a teacher's salary, 1 teacher is about the same, but when you look at the indirect cost of that, if they all had health insurance and all had this, assuming all the same amount, you're providing for 2 health insurances with 2 TAs and only 1 health insurance with a teacher, you're actually not saving as much as you think you are by having the 2 TAs. So that's something that we're looking at to make sure that we have not overstaffed and that we're able to bring back teachers where we desperately need that. So that's an area we're looking at. We also have several trials going on right now, and to bring some of the students back who have agreed to do 45-day trials. That's their right to do that, and at the end of 45 days or prior, they can decide to either stay put where they are or come back and stay in Oxford into the schools. So we're hoping to bring some students back. We have a number of them trying to come back and transition back into the school.
Mrs. Ennis?
How many?
I believe we've had 3 that I'm aware of.
And who's involved in this decision-making for these trials?
That's probably out of my realm, but
It's actually,
Yes, Dr. Grosso.
it's a process of the IEP team. The parents are involved, the directors, other educators. It's an IEP team decision whether students go to an out-of-district placement or students come back to the district.
And since we no longer have team chairs, who is serving in that capacity?
That's respectfully not actually accurate. We have people serving as ETLs. That the model that Ms. Gregorio presented in August indicated that we had team leaders or people serving that function at each building. So we have more coverage. We have them at every building now. We don't call them team chairs, I guess is my point. We're calling them ETLs.
Any idea what grades these trials are?
I think middle and
We
high.
have one at the middle. We have one at the high school.
Mhm.
And I believe we have one at Chafee as well, don't we?
I haven't kept up to date.
I'd have to
I
get
just-
that information if you can, Ms. Ennis, I could
That's
forward it to you.
fine, that's okay. Okay, thank you, that's all I've got.
I have a comment because something you said triggered something in my mind with regards to people being outside of their license. I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know I have the teacher's contract right here in front of me because we were working on it, that there is some information within the teacher's contract that says that they can teach outside of their certification as and retain full employment and seniority rights, and they're granted 2 years to obtain the necessary certification, provided that the DOE grants the required waiver. So because there was a comment made about it's not like the teachers. I know that the teachers have some different processes in which layoffs can be done by department and whatnot, but, so I'm a little bit concerned with the statement that we have TAs that are outside of their license, and if I could have Dr. Garceau
Sure.
address that.
So there were a couple of issues there, Mr. Chair. Again, it's a different contract. So the TAs are under a different contract than the teachers. And even that language about teachers being able to teach in a position for which they are not certified is old carryover language from that contract that's in conflict with law. They can't be teaching in positions that they're not certified. But in the TA contract, when it comes time for recalls, all it speaks to is recall based on seniority.
Okay.
So as we hired people prior to my coming on board and put them in positions where their certifications lined up and everything was, this is where we need them and this is what they're certified for, that was fine. Then when we laid them off, though, and then recalled them, the person who was, a grade 4 Title I teacher and is just where they need to be, suddenly based on seniority and based on need ends up in the high school, and they lack any certification to be there. So the TA contract language needs to come more in line with that teacher contract language in order for us to be able to place people by certification in addition to seniority. We always have to consider seniority, but then we have to look at the fit. The TA contract doesn't call for that consideration of the fit. It just goes by seniority, and it put us in a bind.
So what is being done to rectify that? Are these TAs, are we requesting that they obtain the proper licensure?
Right, yes. And part of what's happened is, unfortunately, we had to lay off our number of TAs. So as we recall people, that gives us more flexibility in terms of where we place them. And we're taking, as Donna said, we're taking a much closer look at whether it is we need TAs in there, or could IAs fill the need that we have based on students, or are we better off placing teachers in classrooms?
And Mrs. Folio, what is the potential liability for having an unlicensed TA? I think you mentioned that there's some out-of-compliance issues.
I don't believe that there's any issue with it, other than, I don't know how constructive it is to have someone in an area that they're not, as a TA, they're not supervising alone in the classroom, they're not doing the lesson plan, that kind of stuff. And certainly, I'm not in the educator area, so I can't really expand upon it. I just know that it was something that I had spoken about with the director, because my impression were that all of the IAs and TAs were primarily here because of a special education requirement, and that's how it was presented. And so I wanted to make sure that that was the case, and as I spoke to more people, I found out that that's maybe not the case.
So thank you. If I don't know if you have anything to add to that. If not, I'd really like to get some clarity on what, if any, issues this may pose, having people in positions that they're not licensed for, and if we could potentially be out of compliance for an IEP or.
So to Donna's point, these folks are really, in large sense, the difference between the IAs and the TAs is that the district made a decision a number of years ago to hire TAs with teacher licensure. So they're licensed as teachers, but they're not teaching under that license. They're not responsible for grading students. They don't work with students outside of the direct supervision of certified licensed teachers working under that license. So again, really the difference between the IAs and the TAs in the district is that the TAs, whether they need it or not, possess a license. But again, if we're going to put somebody in a position as a TA because of a specific need, if we need a math TA, that's what we've decided, we're going to seek somebody with math licensure and math experience in teaching that. But then, again, like I said, with the layoff thing, they just land where they land based on seniority, and that's not working to our advantage either. So it doesn't put us at any liability, doesn't put us at any risk. The students are not being serviced by unqualified people in any way, but it's not nearly as clean as we want it to be. We want to make sure that if we're placing people, it's for the right reasons, in the right positions, to meet the right needs of kids.
Thank you, Dr. Garceau.
I would love to
Mrs. Griffin?
So, just to clarify this, I mean, all of our kids are getting what they need, and they're getting the right services and whatnot. And some of the TAs might not even be using their license at all. That's
Exactly.
because they're not needed to in the capacity that they have. So it's just kind of a bonus if they're in a room where they need to use it, then you might draw upon that if you give them that position type of thing. When is their contract up for renegotiation, and how can the town work to kind of rectify this? So next time, God forbid there's ever a next time, but we need to plan for the things we don't want to think about. If this ever happens again, that we definitely are not put in this bind where we can actually put people in the position we want them in, ideally, because that would be the best circumstance.
Right. So there was a contract reopener to discuss salary. Last spring, that was a very short conversation because there was no changes in salary for anybody. And the contract itself, I believe, expires at the end of this school year, the 15-16 school year.
So at that time, there could be something done about,
There will be.
yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have anything else in your report?
The only other thing is I'm currently working on the end-of-year report, and I believe that you have to sign off on that as well as the superintendent, so as soon as I have that, yes, school committee chairman and the superintendent, I believe, have to sign, so as soon as I have that ready, I'll let Dr. Garceau know that it's available to be signed.
Thank you very much for your report. Okay, as if people didn't hear from us enough this evening, now it's from the school committee members. Mrs. Ennis?
I just want to report that the Oxford Lady Pirates field hockey team is winning 3-0 at the half.
Yay.
Go Molly! No, I have nothing. I wish everybody a great year, but no, I have nothing tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Spitz.
I just usually use this time to comment on stuff that I've been lucky enough to participate in. The school had what's called Pirate Voyage, and that's where the 8th graders come up, and they kind of give them a tour of the school, and the student council really plays games with them during the night, and they really kind of get a feel for the high school, and I get to cook for 100 kids, and that really was tough, right? It was pretty tough, but we handled it. But it was really a successful event that I hope continues. The students really seem to enjoy it. The students that put it on really seem to enjoy it, and I think it was time well spent by everybody. So that's the first thing I've participated in this year, and I figured I'd get it out there that the kids had a good time with it.
Thank you, Mr. Spitz.
Me too.
Mrs. Griffin?
Well, we had the pleasure today of meeting with Senator Fatman. It was Dr. Garceau and Mr. Batar, and came out to the district and sat with us for an hour, and definitely heard our pain. And I'm hoping he will come back and help us with some future goals here. He definitely informed us that he has some listening tours. I don't know if I'm going to get it completely right. It's in regards to concerns for different districts with education. And on Monday, the 21st, he's going to be in Whitensville at Northbridge. I'm hoping it's the school there. On September 28th, he's going to be at Shepherd Hill. And then on September 22nd, he's going to be hearing from other communities as well. And that's at Blackstone, Millville. So I just appreciate the fact that he came out, and he's been very good about making his presence here and listening to our concerns, and trying to help us put our heads together to figure out some ways to help this district more, so that was very helpful. That's about it.
Thank you. So I'm going to start off with the fun thing. Believe it or not, I'm actually kind of a shy person. So over the weekend, I really am, and I'm reserved, but this has brought me out of my shell. So over the weekend, I attended the Kisses for Kayla Family Fun Day, and oh my goodness, they said, we're looking for adults to participate in the pie eating contest. And I kind of like cowered in the corner, and my wife throws my hand up in the air and goes, he'll do it! And I'm happy to report that I won. And there's a really funny picture out there on Facebook of me with pie all over my face. So as embarrassing as that is for me, it was for a really great cause. And thank you to the Millette family and all the volunteers. They had so many volunteers. A couple of them I see here today. So they do so much to help others in our community, and I was happy to be a part of it. Let's see. So next Monday, we will hopefully have a workshop. We're bringing in the Mass Association of School Committees to deliver the first of 5 seminars as part of their district governance program. It will be a posted meeting. It's not televised. So hopefully, as long as we're able to get a quorum, we will be participating in that. And I think that will help us, just solidify our policies and procedures moving forward, and to help the district move forward as a whole. The only other items that I have are really requests. I know that last year, being a new superintendent, Dr. Garceau, you put out the community-wide survey, and I did get some feedback from some people in the community that they'd love to see something like that again. I'm not sure if it would necessarily be the same exact questions or something maybe a little bit different, but in your spare time, I think that if that's something that we could look into doing again, I'm sure it would be helpful. And then I don't believe we did any last year, but prior to my joining the committee, I as my daughter was in kindergarten, I got an all-call about a school committee forum, which Mrs. Ennis was chair of the committee at that time, and it was in September or October, and I attended and I learned a lot, and that's really what got me involved in kind of pushed me towards eventually running for a seat on the school committee. So I'd like some feedback from the community. It's been about a year, 2 years since we've done one last. I think it can be helpful. I know that Dr. Garceau is doing his listening tours again, and I know I think earlier this year, I think it was in January or February, you did the Common Core informational session. So I'm not sure if there's as much of a need, since our superintendent has been so great about getting out in the community. But, at the end of the day, the 5 of us, 4 of us right now, but the 5 of us are elected to serve the people in the community. So if that would be of interest to people, I'd love to hear from members of the community, and perhaps it's something we could schedule sometime in October, since we're only meeting once. And that is all that I have for this evening. The next item on the agenda are requests for topics for future agendas. I believe we had a request for the resolution. I know I have a couple in my email. Do any members of the committee have anything that we didn't already discuss that we're looking to get on a future agenda? Mrs. Ennis?
I want it on the future agenda, but I'm hearing from a lot of parents that they can't get the emails. I know we're working on the OXPS site. Is there something you can put on that page that says it's, we're working, it's under construction, or whatever it is? They can't get emails for teachers and administrators. They can't get phone numbers. A lot of different things. I guess when they do a search, it doesn't come up. So if we could put something on that tomorrow morning, and that's all I have for that.
Thank you.
That would be helpful for them.
Mrs. Griffin?
Numbers. Numbers in regards to how everything has been shaking out in the district would be greatly appreciated. I know that's being worked upon, and I appreciate that.
You all set, Bill?
I'm good.
You're good. Okay. Then at this time, I'd like to open the floor for questions and comments from the floor. This is an opportunity to address the committee. It is not a question and answer session. It is an opportunity for statements to be made. The chair may direct a member or the superintendent to respond to a question or issue. Topics for discussion must be limited to those items that were listed on the school committee meeting agenda for this evening. If you wish to speak, please come forward and state your name. All remarks are to be addressed through the chair. In a public session, the committee will not hear personal complaints of school personnel, nor against any member of the school committee. Please do not reveal any confidential information regarding a student, and in the interest of time, we ask that you please limit your comments to 3 to 5 minutes. Is there anybody that would like to address the committee this evening? Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for hearing me. My name's September Forbes. I'm from Walnut Street here in Oxford. 3 things I'd like to talk about or just make a statement about. I would love to be included in that Chapter 70 roundtable if that ever comes to be. I am an educator, but in the early childhood world, so I do have some knowledge of the Chapter 70, and I like to be as knowledgeable and involved as I can be as a parent and also as a community member. Secondly, and to that point also, I am a person who is against the Common Core. I see what we're doing in preschool with these children, and I see what's happening in other states with the same age groups. And there is a huge gap, and to water down our curriculum to meet standards of Kentucky, no offense to central and southern states, but we really do mark ourselves as leaders in education, and we need to continue to do that. So I am all for a moratorium on the park and additional testing. My children have just joined public school, coming out of private school where we didn't do a standardized test every other week, and that's sort of how I felt last year between my 2 children, that there's a lot of that going on. It is stressful for the children. My children seem to be doing fine, so I'm not speaking on a personal level, but overall I agree with a lot of what Mrs. Ennis said, that all children don't test well. And I don't think that's a great indicator for everyone, and to change it when we're finally getting so much feedback and seem to be doing well, I think we need to continue with that and possibly bring in some parts of park, but not to, as I think Mr. Vitar said, throw the baby out with the bathwater. Or was that you, Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's quite all right.
And lastly, and with all due respect, Dr. Garceau, the busing issue was so much more than what every other town sustains and deals with every year. There was such a lack of communication to the families. I understand that it was posted everywhere, but you couldn't open the links. Many people were asking, when you clicked on the link, me, for example, on the elementary buses, AM and PM, kept kicking me back to my Google sign-in. Could not get to it through a number of different means. There were people on Facebook who also had that same situation. So I sent an email on the link that said if you had any special circumstances. And because I couldn't get in, I clicked on the link and sent an email and never received a response from anybody. I found out that my first grader is a walker, and shame on me for not knowing. I'm not blaming everyone for that. I don't have a problem with that situation. I would never let my 6-year-old walk home from school, and I have the situation under control. But as you had spoken, Dr. Garceau, on the 25th at the meeting about welcoming the happy faces on the first day of school and how great that is, I think that when the bus pulled up and kids were told they couldn't get on, that devastated children. Mine was not one of them. People were blasting all over Facebook, and I'm really disappointed with the turnout of parents, because I've talked to a lot of people and said, come to the school committee, tell them. I'm sure it will never happen again, but I think that acknowledging that it was a serious lack of communication for children who were on bus routes last year, there should have been some sort of concrete, your kid's a walker. That is I guess, previously referred to as a neighborhood school, Chafee, for example. But My thoughts on a neighborhood school would be a school I grew up in, where kindergarten through 6, everybody from your neighborhood went to that school. So to have walkers in a neighborhood school, to me, is the 6th grader with the badge and the fluorescent orange vest walking home the kindergarten, 1st and 2nd graders. We don't have neighborhood schools. So I think that that is a little bit of an issue with the way our schools are structured. And I am all for charging for buses. I think that $1 a day to be transported to and from your place of school or work is a great bargain. It would help bring some money in. I know everybody isn't able to pay for that. Maybe we could do a general collection bus fund, I don't know. And I'm not against cutting the buses and having walkers. I'm really not. I understand the dilemma of finances. But I think that it was much more than what a typical school year would entail. And I felt really bad for the secretaries and the people who were at the schools when I'm standing in the school at 4:30 saying, well, do you happen to know where she might be? And she's clicking away on the computer, and she was the sort of, I wasn't an angry parent, I wasn't yelling at anybody, but they were really the first line of defense, and they got hammered that day, secretaries in the offices, because parents didn't know. That was all I wanted to say. Thank you for hearing me.
You'd rather I didn't.
I'd rather you not.
Okay.
Let's stick with it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have any other comments or questions from the floor? Okay, hearing none, I will close the floor, and at this time, I'd like to request a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Before we do that, I forgot to do the motion for the moratorium.
Well, that had,
Could join with,
that
You want
should
everybody?
wait, no, but it's not on our agenda,
okay.
so we should wait so we don't violate it.
fine.
Yep.
I just got so excited with the field hockey score.
Sorry. But we'll list that as a topic for our next agenda. Now, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Let the record show, 4 in the affirmative. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.